Hello everyone, I'm back, ready to do another round of Monster Club character talks. This isn't going to be my last video on the Monster Club send-off, but I'm going to wrap up all the main characters with this. If y'all want to hear me talk about the Farm Club characters, like the group that came from the farm or anything like that, shoot me a comment or shoot me a note or a message and tell me that you want to see that. If not, I'm going to leave them alone. But to get us started today, I'm going to start with Solomon because honestly, there's not a lot to say about Solomon. I want to spend a little time on him, but then we'll move to the other two. And that sounds mean, but I don't want to be mean about Solomon because he was a special character. I actually feel a little bit bad about how I treated him in the story. I felt he left very unceremoniously. This was a good example of my inability to really recognize the value of his existence in the story. And now I'm not saying that a character should never die. I'm saying that if they do die, it needs to hold weight, and I think that it held some weight, but I think it could have been a lot better how I handled it. Some people made a few connections to characters in terms of biblical names, but I will say that Solomon's name is the only one where genuinely I did name him Solomon based on the biblical King Solomon. Now, who inspired him? There were lots of inspirations for what made Solomon. Some of it was my own grandfather. Some of it was different characters that I've seen in movies, particularly Indiana Jones's father in The Last Crusade. I thought that's actually one of the inspirations for the appearance when I was designing him. But he's really your old man stereotype. But I wanted to, for those of you who don't know, I'm not going to spoil the twist. But again, please just go read the story. Just if you're here and you haven't read the story, go read it, because that way I don't have to do all these spoiler alerts. But the twist that I made with Solomon, I had planned that very early on in the story, and I was working to make that a big deal. And as you can see in the last chapter, I tried to redirect emphasis on that. Because Solomon's role with the club, some people think, wasn't he the leader? No, he wasn't really the leader. He was just more of the wise guidance that they had. Like if you've ever seen the Disney television show Gargoyles, you had Goliath, but you also had Hudson, and Hudson may have been older than Goliath, but Goliath was still the leader. Goliath just looked to Hudson for advice, and that's kind of what Solomon was. He was this old, wise individual who'd seen a lot and now just gave advice. Now, some people questioned how he died. I mean, he's a ghost. How does he die? I got a little bit of that from Supernatural, the TV show, where a ghost is made when a spirit can't move on because they're attached to something in this life. And as long as they hold that attachment, they can't let go and move on. And his attachment was that was that cabin house that they lived in. And because he couldn't let go of that cabin house, he was still around. But Solomon served a lot of great purposes. I really enjoyed what he got to do. And I can't say I enjoyed writing him because, to be honest, I didn't get to write him as much as I probably would have liked. He was mostly there to be the wise old man to really introduce Abraham. I think he served a purpose, and I think he could have served more of a purpose given the opportunity. I am a little disappointed I didn't get to do more with him, but c'est la vie. Great character, but one of my more botched performances, if I must admit. Okay, so now that we're done talking about Solomon, let's go to Annie. Annie was the first club member who I didn't create personally with Mika. Now, I did help in the creation of Annie, but I want to thank Hannah Hiring for creating Annie with me. Annie was the youngest member of the Monster Club. She is also the only one besides Abraham who you might say, is she really a monster? Because she's a witch. And she's also Korean. Some of you may have noticed that her magic spells are a little odd. Like she often says some weird phrase. That's because it's Korean. She is speaking some Korean when she does her magic spells. At the time that Annie was created, I had a lot of friends over in Korea, and I still do. I still have some friends in Korea. And so they were willing to help me in the inspiration factor of Annie and her design and her style. Annie, to me, was... It's hard to put a label on what Annie was, and I don't want to because Annie was a lot of things. Annie played a lot of different roles. For one thing, she, again, much like Katie, was an example of how prejudice is not exclusive to humankind. This is why I got so upset when a lot of my fans started talking about Monster Club in the sense that it was a war story between the Dawnbringers and the monsters. Because did you not see how the club reacted to Annie, a girl who is younger than any of them, is a lost child, and quite frankly has done nothing wrong, but immediately is untrustworthy and hated by everyone. She has to get backup from Sarah and Abraham, who just don't see the problem with her. And eventually she does mix into the club. She does meld. But at first, again, there is animosity on all sides. She joins them. She starts out as a very happy-go-lucky girl. She's cute. She's funny. She wants to be part of things. She carries around this little black stuffed cat that she calls Blackie. Again, referencing her witchness. She's dressed in an almost anime-esque schoolgirl style, which I thought was adorable. But as the story goes on, you see her actually latch on to Abraham, and that's why I wanted to do her and Abraham together in terms of a character discussion, because you can't talk about Annie without talking about Abraham. And her relationship to Abraham is very much a brother-sister relationship. Why? Lots of reasons why, and a couple of my fans have actually asked me about it, and I'll go ahead and clear the air. It's because to her, Abraham is like her. Abraham is like her because he doesn't really count as a monster from the physical sense, but he also can't really count himself among humans because of their exposure to monsters. I mean, think about it. If Abraham just left the club and tried to exist with human society again, could he really exist well, given the knowledge that he now knows and the experiences that he's now had? It would be very hard for him, just like it's hard for Annie, who, even though she looks human and could behave human by all accounts, she's got magic in her, and that's something she can't get rid of. I'll also point out, just fun little tidbit of fact, Annie was also one of the inspirations for the magic in another story I'm writing with my friend Nahami on her account and on mine, called Beware the Magic Fan. If you have noticed in that one, they also use Korean as their magic phrasing to do their magical transformations, and Annie was a major influence on doing that. So just in case y'all didn't know. A couple people asked the question, does Annie play a role later on in the story? Will she carry a bigger role? Well, the story's over now, so she didn't play that much of a role in it. What she was meant to do was be yet another example, like I said, of the prejudice, but also to be a cute add-in. Plus, I believe that Hannah really just wanted to add another character, because sometimes when you're working on a story or something related to that story for someone else, you kind of need something to help tie you into it. Like sometimes, I'll have people who say, hey, could you write a story for me? And I say, sure. And as I write the story, I kind of insert a character of my own just to sort of feel like I have a tie into it. And I almost feel like Annie was Hannah's tie into it. Annie was also the first Monster Club member that Hannah drew, because she just loved her. And I love Annie. She's so adorable. There's so much that I love about her personality. I loved how she tried to help out the club in the final act. I love how she holds Abraham's hand almost everywhere because she just feels like she belongs with him. And then if you play the visual novel, you see so much more of Annie as a clingy little sister to Abraham, wanting to be with him all the time, cozying up to him by the fire, having private conversations with him, getting upset when she doesn't get to go with him. Like she almost turned a little whiny, which I like. I like that she could show a bit of a spoiled side. It showed that she was getting accustomed to the club, which felt like a character reaching her full potential. But I loved Annie. I still love Annie. And tell me how you feel about Annie. Like, what did you think about her? Did you think that she was a good character? Did you enjoy her addition to the club? What would you have liked to have seen more of with Annie? Tell me what you think about Annie. So, yeah, that's Annie. And so now, my friends, it's time to talk about the main character, Abraham. I saved him for last because there's a lot that I want to get out about Abraham, and I probably won't be able to get out everything that I really want to and keep this video within a reasonable amount of time. So let's get started. Abraham, the first thing that I want to say about Abraham is everyone guessed that he was going to get with Sarah because his name was Abraham, and in the Bible, the biblical Abraham was married to Sarah. Honestly, that did not occur to me until someone mentioned it. No, I named him Abraham because I named him after Abraham Van Helsing from Dracula, who was a strange man who wandered into the story of Dracula, but had vast knowledge about the world of the supernatural and monsters. And I wanted that to be kind of what Abraham became, a human who interacted with the monsters. The other big myth that came out, and this came out very quickly because apparently when we were doing some more stuff with Monster Club, a couple people were asking, is Abraham going to become a monster, or is he secretly a monster? And I thought that was funny. Hannah even made a very funny little image of Abraham holding the sign saying "a monster" with a question mark. I was like, "Am I a monster?" And everyone just trying to guess what he was. Oh, he's going to be this. He's going to be that. He's actually this. No, guys, he's, sorry to burst your bubble, but he's just human. And I made that point very clear. When Abraham asked Asher to transform him into a vampire, Asher made it clear that the reason I won't do that is not just because you don't want to be a vampire like I am, but because our goal in this club is to integrate into society one day, to lose the label of monster. If you can't live amongst us as a human, if you have to become a monster to live amongst us, then our goal is once again back where it started, because it means that you couldn't do it. And it's going to break the spirit of this club. Now, some people were saying, well, but then Abraham can't contribute anything. Actually, a couple of my fans pointed out to me, no, he totally can. He's basically saved the club on quite a few occasions. And while he doesn't get to be as action-packed as Asher and Michelle are, he plays roles like keeping the club together, leading the club, making sure that everyone's taken care of, finding them a new place to live. He's done things, so it's not like he's just a nobody. In terms of design and appearance, actually, what I find really sad is Abraham has never gotten his own real profile pic until Hannah came along. He didn't get his own profile, and I felt, isn't that a little sad? He's the main character. Shouldn't he get one? Because he's the titular character in the visual novel too, he doesn't have a sprite dedicated to him. So, quite frankly, he only has one profile image. But, you know, some people like to point that, I want to point this out. As a studier of different classics and classical styles of writing, and in terms of different genres of writing, I've noticed that in some anime, like especially harem anime, the male character is always a blank slate personality-wise. And the reason why is because the main character can easily insert themselves into the role of the male character to better project their desires and interests into the girl surrounding him. And one of my big fears with Abraham is I didn't want him to become that. I didn't want him to be a blank slate where all you have to do is insert yourself into him to get the full idea. That was the last thing I wanted. I did not want that for Abraham, which is ironic because in the visual novel, that's kind of what he became. But in the story, I wanted him to be more than that. I wanted him to have feelings, motives, desires, fears, uncertainties. I wanted him to be a character rather than a suit that the reader could put on and just live as him. And I don't know if I really succeeded in that. Of all the characters that I've written in Monster Club, Abraham is the one that I feel the most sorry for. The reason why is because I keep looking back at him and I keep thinking, I should have done you better than I did. I did you dirt. Much like I did with Solomon. Although there was no way to fix Solomon because he ended up passing on. He died. With Abraham, I felt like I should have done more with you. I should have carried your character more places. I should have had more on your background. I should have had more on you as a person so that the reader could better feel like they understood Abraham. So of all the mistakes I made in Monster Club, I think writing him as poorly as I did was the biggest, especially considering he's the main character. In terms of design, he's designed a whole lot based on me, like the green eyes and brown hair thing. But I wanted him to be younger than me with that almost naivete. I wanted him to realize the theme of the story, which you would expect from a main character. And the theme of the story is, of course, not that monsters and Dawnbringers are at war. That actually goes against the theme of the idea. The theme of the story was that family comes in all shapes and sizes, and the Monster Club became his family. So Abraham, by fulfilling his grandfather's wishes, has also found his family. So Big deal. I also want to say that at the beginning of Monster Club, in the very first chapter, I feel like that was one of my best descriptive opening chapters ever. And I want to thank Abraham for doing that with me. He was an easy character to write. He was a very entertaining character to write. But again, I feel like I didn't do enough for him. I feel like I let him down. And in doing so, let down my audience by not doing him at my absolute best. So, there's not a lot left to say about Abraham. I feel like he was crucial to making the story work. I feel like even though I didn't do him the best that I could, I think that I wrote him as well as necessary to get my point and themes across. I feel like I tried a little too hard at times to push the message, you do matter, Abraham. Yeah, I think that I got a little too ham-fisted with that, but again, it was an early writing exercise for me, and I could have done Monster Club a lot better, and when I go through it and edit it some to publish, maybe I will fix some of that. But anyway, that's Abraham. And that is officially all of the main major characters of Monster Club. If you have any further questions about them, please leave a comment in the video or message me on DeviantArt to ask those questions. I'll be happy to get back to you on that. Or I will add them to the Q&A, which will be the next video that I release. Unless, and this is for y'all to decide, if y'all want me to do a video on the Farm Club members or maybe even Tori and Naomi and Mako. If you want me to do a video on any of the other characters, please, I urge you, send me a comment, because if you don't, I'm not going to do it, because I want to make sure that I'm not wasting your time. Please send me a comment, a message, anything, letting me know, hey, I want to hear more about these characters. If I get enough of them, I'll make a video. If not, then we'll push them aside and move on to the questions and answers. Please send me your questions so that I can give you answers in the next video, and I will catch you in the next video. Later.